Hello, my name is Cameron. You are at Office Hours. This is a weekly Letta live stream where I basically just talk about what's going on in the Letta world. I'm going to give you some slides here, just kind of give you like some high-level overview of what's been going on in the ecosystem, and then we'll have time for like questions and stuff like that afterwards. And it's just kind of an open-ended like chit-chat. I might show off some stuff. We can play around. So if you've got questions or comments or anything, drop them in the chat, and I would be happy to answer them. I love it when people chip in and ask questions and provide comments and tell us what they want. Okay, so let's start off with the big thing here, which is shared memory. So we have a lot of requests for people who want some form of shared memory because they have multi-agent setups, or they're working in a team setting, or they have lots of projects, and they want to kind of like sandbox certain types of memory such that multiple agents can work on it. So we've been expanding how shared memory works, and it's been kind of like we're trying to like improve the ergonomics, but it's finally at a point where I think people can actually start trying it. And so I wanted to show you kind of how it works and talk about it a little bit, so maybe we can start getting more feedback about how to improve it. So shared memory is very simple. It's essentially just a shared Git repository that multiple agents can write to. So it's very similar to like how MemFS works and how context repositories work for agent-specific context repositories. So shared memory is really good for a few cases where you have like, projects that maybe multiple agents work on, where you have like different teams that organize around different like work items, or like kind of shared knowledge bases, like, internal wikis or things like that, where you want like agents to manage, like to be able to share and retrieve information about similar things, right? So your desktop may look a little different. This should be rolling out relatively soon. We're testing out a release candidate. I think people already should have some form of shared memory button on in their desktop. And this also works. I'll talk about doing the CLI in a second. But you can click that little shared memory button. And then I created an Agent SDK shared memory, just like shared repo for all the Letta agents to use to talk about this Agent SDK. This is brand new, so there's nothing in here. So right now it's only like, this is like the version 1 setup. There is like some you can upload text files if you want to. And then inside of the chat box, you can select shared memory by typing the @ sign. You'll also note if you have the GitHub integration set up, you can @ repositories to pull them into the context. But for now, we're just going to look at shared memory. And so I hit the @ there, I selected it, and then I am going to go to Agent SDK. And I said, okay, check out the shared Agent SDK, and it like looked through it a little bit, and then I said, okay, go ahead and fill it out. Go put some stuff in here. So I told this to Overlord, which is our software engineering agent that knows a lot about the Agent SDK. And so it wrote some stuff, and it made a commit and pushed the stuff to it, and it says, oh, okay, we're now up to date on the 0.6.2 version of the SDK with a few other things. If you go back to the shared memory view for the Agent SDK, you'll see now that there's a bunch of files in here, and then you can see kind of the document that it wrote. Okay, so now agents can kind of have like a central knowledge repository that they can all work from. So I went to another agent on a different model. This one was on Opus 5. This is my personal agent, and I had my personal agent doing some like market research about where the Agent SDK falls and how it compares to other like kind of like ways of programming agents. So I said, hey, can you add what you know to the Agent SDK? So this agent thought for a little bit, and it added like market evidence, like positioning, like target audience and things like that for the Agent SDK. And then it updated the README of that of the shared memory repository. And then it was like, oh, okay, my contribution was why the SDK exists and who it's for. So this is, a byproduct of like market research, not just like Overlord's perspective, which was much more like about how you actually build on it, how it works, things like that. So this is kind of a simple example, and now any agent can refer to that shared memory repository as needed. So highly recommend playing around with that a little bit. All agents now should have, cloud agents I believe, should have the managing shared memory skill available. So if you are outside of Letta Desktop, you can just ask them to load this skill, and they should be able to navigate shared memory all on their own without needing the user interface. So you should just be able to say like, hey, can you go to the Agent SDK shared memory and leave this stuff here? And they'll be like, oh, I'll read the skill and then understand how to work with it. So every agent should have access to this skill currently. So this should also help if you're on the TUI. Because the TUI doesn't have like native stuff for like managing shared memory, like attaching it in the same way as the desktop does. So you just have to like prompt your agent and say like, go read the skill for now until we figure out like what the UI looks like inside of the CLI for shared memory. Okay, so please give us feedback on shared memory. If you run into anything that you didn't expect or you wanted something different, like we would love to know, because this is a highly requested feature, and so we want to make sure that it's good and that people are able to build memory stores that actually help them with their projects. Schedules. There's been a few things with schedules that have changed and kind of we've fixed a few bugs. I think there's still some more work to do on schedules, but the primary one is that there was some confusion about basically where, like, schedules for cloud agents are function in a different way now. So when your agent creates a schedule, if it is a cloud agent, regardless of whether or not it's operating in a cloud sandbox or like on any other device that you operate, any computer you operate, the schedule created by an agent on like your laptop, for example, actually sends that schedule to cloud, and we have like a kind of a cloud schedule manager, basically, that will now make it so that if your computer is online, it will shoot the prompt to your computer and ask your agent to operate on your computer. So cloud allows you to store work that you want done at some point, and it will fall back to using a cloud sandbox if your computer is offline. So previously there was an issue where like every schedule was going to the cloud. We fixed that. It should be targeting wherever, like if your agent creates a schedule, it should target operating on the computer that your agent created the schedule. So this should help people a lot more with having like reliable agents that are able to operate everywhere. And you should have fewer dropped schedules because now they are like cloud. We have, they are stored in our cloud system, and that's a lot more reliable than running it on device. So we fixed a few things there. There's another thing where I think there's a standing issue that some people may still run into where schedules can like interrupt messages. I think the reliability on that has improved somewhat, but it requires a structural change to how schedules work that I think we still need to do. So people should expect to see greater schedule improvement, schedules reliability continue to improve. Anyway, not my best sentence, but that's okay. All right. Local providers, we rolled out OpenAI compatible provider support on cloud like a week or two ago, actually maybe a little while longer than that. So you could connect to any OpenAI compatible provider. If you had like some weird provider that we didn't support, you can just use their URL, their OpenAI compatible URL, and you can use them as your inference provider. That wasn't supported on the local backend, and we had a lot of requests for that. So I went ahead and added it, and people should try it out. So you should be able to do this command now, backend local connect OpenAI compatible, and then give it the base URL and the API key. So this should allow people to use like, mysterious niche inference provider that we don't support directly through this. So people should try that out. There's also now a stateless mode. This is really more for like, this is probably not applicable to most people. If you are somebody who is like more of a developer or a researcher and you want to test out a stateless mode, you can do -- stateless, which essentially means that this agent will run without memfs. It can't go read external memories. It won't have like the skills that are inside of its memory. It will have the system prompts compiled into its memory. So it's kind of like a snapshot. of the agent at the time that you create it. And it only works in headless mode, so when you have this like -p where you send the prompt directly. So you can use this directly for like kind of testing stuff. I thought I would share for people who do more like headless or like orchestration or like want to play around with like read-only memory and stuff like that. So this is good if you're doing like evals or like kind of like read-only system memory or like disposable workers. And dreaming is disabled for these runs. So yeah, anyway, I thought I would share that for the people who are interested in more like of our like niche CLI flags. Okay. Channels are just like generally much more robust. Charles made a huge change to how channels work underneath the hood. And I'll tell you the technical thing that happened in a second for people who are interested, but primarily you should observe like more robust channel support, better error reporting, and it should be much easier for your agent to build dynamic channels. The technical thing that happened was previously when you spun up the Letta app server, it would have a channels process embedded in the same server runtime. And this was really clunky because you can't really like hot reload it or anything. Like, so if you change something in channels, like you actually have to like kind of kill the entire server and spin it back up because it's bundled with just channels. And it also kind of had this like weird thing where like the channels talk to the agent's queue in a different way. All that stuff has been removed. So channels has now been factored into like a separate gateway service, essentially, like as a sidecar, totally separate process from the Letta app server. And all it does is send stuff into the app server WebSocket stream. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, you should look at the internals for how channels function now. It should be a lot more robust and a lot easier to build on. I added something like a linear channel. If you work in linear, that's still very much a work in progress, but the pull request is on Letta code that uses more of the like gateway style approach. And then all of the underlying existing channels, channel plugins use the newer structure. So thank you for Charles for doing that work. We're probably going to use a similar pattern for schedules. Okay. I also wanted to thank Signo. A lot of people know that I am, the most American thing about me is that I think WhatsApp is quite dumb. However, it is an extremely useful, ubiquitous chat tool with a pretty good developer API, and a lot of people use WhatsApp to talk to their agents. But it is a big blind spot for me because I don't use WhatsApp. And Signo prepared like a ton of improvements to WhatsApp. And so we managed to roll those in fully this week. So you get like reactions, attachment controls, message debouncing, like better reconnects, typing indicators, message prefixes, and things like that. So big thanks to Signo for contributing that and being very patient with me while it took me for absolutely forever to get it rolled into the code base. So that stuff is available. Please give Signo a round of applause. Hooray. Okay. And then lastly, I wanted to share, we're starting to push the Agent SDK a lot more because we're very proud of it. And it's at the point where it's like kind of functional and interesting. So I'm building in some demo apps. And I was like, I built this thing called HyperVigilant. And HyperVigilant is a kind of like it's basically a server that you spin up, a little process that you spin up that watches any number of files in a subfolder. So for example, you can look for changes in any markdown document that matches like a particular like file pattern or naming convention. You can, anytime someone saves that file in like an editor or whatever, it can take the diffs of that file and then send it to an agent. And you can send it to one conversation that's mapped to each file. So an agent can have like 100 conversations, one for every file. If you change a file, that conversation can now act and do things. So if you change something, like if you run it on like TypeScript code, for example, you can look for changes in TypeScript code and say, well, the conversation that runs that file, the agent can now be like, oh, well, we changed this, we changed the definition of type inside of this code. Now we have to go to every other file and make sure that it's confirmed that we've done that change everywhere else. And so you can configure this, use different prompts that have multiple listeners and all this stuff. It's kind of like a little bit of a goofy example. I mostly like the name. You can go to Letta-AI/HyperVigilant is where this repository is. And then I built a demo application on top of it called The Doc. And The Doc is just a simple text editor, like a little web server, where when you change the doc, it guides the agent that's the starting default agent to make that document as true as possible. So here's what it started out as. I was playing around with it a little bit last night. On the left is a document you can edit. On the right, you can see the agents that are monitoring the document. In this case, it's just HyperVigilant. So if this document is not true, an AI will make it so. And then I had some pictures of dogs section here. So I had, this is a mid-change. This is not a very good demo, but this is a picture of a dog. I changed all the text from dog to say cat. So cat pictures, cat.svg, a hand-drawn SVG dog. That was actually a typo on my part. I should have also changed this to cat. Edit this document to give the cat a name, or add another picture. This is a dog, and this is a dog. These are left over. This actually points to cat or dog.svg under the hood. So the agent saw the diff of me changing cat or dog to cat, and then I hit Control S, and then it sent a little thing where it says, oh, okay, I'm reading the change in the document. And you can see what it's doing. So it saw that there was a document revision right here at 11:01, and then it started like reading the document change, and then it started changing project.md, which is the file that's being rendered in this document. And then it just changed it to a cat. It drew a cat picture using SVG by hand. It also corrected my little typo, and it corrected the emoji thing here. And so the agent just like fixed the doc to make everything align with what I intended, basically. So that is the doc. I may tinker around with it a little bit more, but this code is all available. People can go mess around with that and play around with it and fork it and see how we use the Agent SDK under the hood to like show like what the agent is doing, and then also how we do like how HyperVigilant works by mapping files to like how different agents listen. So I'm also going to continue playing with HyperVigilant because it's been like super fun working on it, and I think it's like a good application of like using the Agent SDK to allow your agent to live on top of much more complicated data structures and event streams. Okay, so let's do some live Q&A. I'm going to jump over to the Discord, and we'll see what people have to say. Okay. All right. Let's see what we got. Slides. The calendar event triggers a day early for me. Can this be fixed? What do you mean? Oh, there's a Google Calendar thing. Okay, I'll ask, Charles may have to take a look at that. What's the functionality gap between local backend and cloud now? Presumably you're referring to shared memory. The gap is that there is no shared memory for local. It's a cloud feature. If you're a person who needs like shared memory, but you're on local backend, you can just use like normal Git. Like you could just make a repository. It's kind of the same structure, but it doesn't have the same like bells and whistles that make it easy to use on cloud. I don't know what our current plans are. So, but I can try and get some clarity on that. Let's see. Somebody wants the. Uh-oh. Okay, here, let me get the command for connecting. Oh man, no, none of my keyboard shortcuts are working. Very odd. Okay, Chrome is not working anymore. Let me see if I can pull up the thing here, the command. All right, I'm gonna post that here. Okay. All right, that is posted now. Romancer says, for schedules, I just have them in dumping ground conversation where they're not likely to overlap. Would like some love here, but frankly, I don't know. The solution is besides integrating the same tooling that mods is being used for detecting when turns end. Yeah, I mean, the solution for this is partly like how you actually choose to map schedules, right? Because schedules can be, there are many ways to configure schedules, right? A lot of people just dump them into one conversation, which I do and actually works fine. Most decent models now are perfectly capable of working with multiple schedules. You can also, there's also a dedicated mode. So you can have the schedule create a dedicated conversation, and then all future messages will only go to one conversation. You can also use a new conversation mode, which allows you to, every time the schedule fires, to create a new conversation for that schedule. And then you can also target specific conversations that you already have or already exist. So it really depends on how you use the agent and how you like managing conversational contexts. I personally usually have one conversation that receives schedules, unless it's like something that's like a bigger job, or that where I don't want the agent to be like, to have like existing conversation context like kind of confuse it. So for example, I do like a housing search because I'm like considering moving to Oakland half-assedly. And so I have like one schedule that creates a new conversation every morning and has the agent like go read like Craigslist and apartments.com and stuff like that. The channels thing has bit me since I use Discord to talk a lot to agents. Yeah, channels is being improved quite a bit. There's still one big issue that I know that a lot of people are running into, which people think of as like, for you probably experienced, or your agent has been like, oh, it's a stale approval or whatever. You may have heard that error. That is something we're like actively working on, and essentially it has to do with like basically not having very good reconnect logic when we do scale down events, is my understanding of the issue. I think Jin has more context on that. I'll have to follow up with him on that one. But yeah, that reliability is being improved. Laura asks, HyperVigilant is like having a real-time editor sitting next to you. Am I understanding this properly? The Doc is an example of how you can use HyperVigilant to create an editor that, like a text view that makes things real. HyperVigilant is just a way of saying, it's a process where you go into any folder on your computer, and you can configure HyperVigilant in many ways. It's very flexible. Kind of like Docker Compose, if you're familiar with that, it's a similar thing. But you can basically say, if you observe edits in Markdown files, send that diff, the change in a Markdown file, to this agent and this conversation with this prompt. Then you can disable tools. You can make it so that it can't edit things, but it can observe that information. Like, it can only observe that information, or you can make it so that it can just do stuff also. It has like work tree support. So if you're in like code, it can spin up a separate work tree, and so that the agent can only edit things in a separate work tree. And then you can try and like do intermittent git merges. So HyperVigilant, like the doc, is a very narrow, small use case of how you can use HyperVigilant to map files on disk to something that's happening. The doc is just a way of using HyperVigilant under the hood, basically. I don't know if that makes sense, but you can use HyperVigilant for being like let's say you could run this at the root of your computer. Yeah, I would not recommend this. It would be very expensive. But you could have it look for changes in any text file on your computer, and that agent would just passively learn about all activity on that computer. And you could also have it edit, and it could just start doing stuff. So for example, if you wanted to have like I would actually be interested in seeing whether you could do this. You could have like a security hypervisor situation where you have like an agent that is hypervigilant at the root, and it sees all the logs that are like coming from like system logs, like Nginx, like web server logs, and then it can also just like kind of know what's happening on the machine kind of everywhere. I think that would be relatively expensive. HyperVigilant does support debouncing and batching, so that you could make it so that it accumulates stuff like every 15 minutes or something like that. But you can make your agent aware of what is happening on a computer in code in your project. If you can run this in like Obsidian so that your agent is passively understanding what's going on. You can make it so that it changes to one file. There's prompting such that like in Obsidian, if you change a file, that agent has specific instructions to make sure that that file is hyperlinked to the rest of the document to make sure that you have like a densely connected structure. So let's see. Bibbs has been using the SDK to build a tabletop RPG system. Been working really well, apart from my main building agent forgetting a bit how Letta works and injecting more context than needed, since Letta already provides it. Yeah, if there's learning that you have about the Agent SDK or how to build it, I would love your folk wisdom, because we want to make sure that we can have a set of skills about how to build with the Agent SDK. Because my ultimate preference is that every agent inside of Letta has the Agent SDK, and so when you're talking to it, it can basically just be like, oh, I'm just gonna like build all of this stuff for you and automate these things for you using like Luna, which is really cheap, or like Letta Auto or something like that. And so the agents can build systems for you, and we kind of need like folk wisdom and agent experience about how to build those well. And the best part about it is like, we don't care what model you use. You can use local models. You can use kind of whatever. And I love that we basically made like the Claude Agent SDK, but like not vendor locked in and across any device. It's a really good SDK. I'm really, really, really proud of it. Like the team did an extremely good job. I'm really proud. So if you run into things and you want to improve it, I'll make a channel for the Agent SDK, because I think it's like we're gonna start like really pushing it because it's fun. I really enjoy working with it. I actually don't know why Charles is posting Tung Tung, but that's okay. Lilith, you missed everything. We actually fixed Letta. So yeah. Kyle just installed the explicit oath mod, which is Kainoa. Has that. I don't know if that's if anybody's dropped a link to that. I don't remember the difference between explicit oath and oath. I think it's Oath Keeper. I don't remember. Was Oath Keeper Romancer? Was that yours? Because we have two oath mods. Let's see here. Okay, anything else? Nobody's filling you in, Lilith. I can't believe nobody's filling you in. I don't think anybody's listening to me. The schedules are good now. Channels are better. We have shared memory. Everything is fixed. And also, HyperVigilant is cool, I think. Fimig showed up, but was out building a web browser. Very, very Fimig thing to build is a web browser. Let's see. Romancer wants to see which conversation a schedule is set to be run in. It could be shown somewhere in the schedules page GUI. I think we may have added that, but let me see. Hold on, I'm going to look at desktop and see what we have in like the most recent version. Oh yeah, it doesn't allow you to select specific conversations, so let me leave that in there. Thank you, that's good rec. I'll add that. Romancer has changed their display name to Attendant Romancer. because he is an attendant now because he pumps gas for his Letta agents. Bibbs, it kind of reminds me, Bibbs had some comment about like having more time for cyberpsychosis, and then cross that out and leaving it as like working with Letta agents, which I thought was so funny because I'm like, sometimes like when I'm working with Letta, I'm just like, man, I can like take over the world. Like I've like built like the ultimate AI like cognition brains. You get like a little brain cooked sometimes. I've had my struggles with like the mild AI derangement or whatever it is you want to call it. And I still have it sometimes where I'm just like, this is really cool and I've solved all problems in the world. And yeah, so I think of that. I've been thinking about that all week. It's living rent free in my head. Oh, yes, you can now add Featherless as a provider. Lilith is posting some swear words. You can't be out here swearing, Lilith. This is a family environment. So Kyle says, so HyperVigilant is an example of async function calling to Letta agents. More like, let me see if I can show you. Let me show you a little bit what it looks like. It may help to show you like just kind of the terminal so you can see roughly what it looks like. So I'm going to clear this. So let's do fun run the doc. Okay. So this is the logs here. It's just going to like start it up and it'll give me like a little URL. And actually here, I guess I'll share my whole screen because we want to see the entire thing. I'll just share the whole screen. Okay. So this is roughly the doc. Everything in this document is true. Oh my God, my browser is just not working. Hold on, let me just kill my... not working. What was I looking for? The doc. Okay. All right, so this is the doc. I'm going to change it so that everything in this document is false. If this thing is true, the AI will make it not so. The AI will check every diff. Is the fact false? All right, let's see. Is the fact true? If so, it needs to not happen. Okay. And then let's change this so that it says maybe more like, let's see. This document ends in a period. Let's try that. So now you can hit Control S and you'll see that it says, okay, it's reading the saved document diff. And we can go check out what's happening. So we see here, okay, we saw a change in a watched file. So project.md, the configuration for HyperVigilant says, okay, or for the doc is say, just watch for changes in project.md. And so we can also change like, we can look at the HyperVigilant configuration file. So basically it's saying collect all changes within 120 milliseconds and like group them together. If you see a change in the project.md file, so if you create it or change it, you're going to say treat the saved diff as desired reality. Try to make it true. So the prompting is a little old. So let's see here what it gets up to. Oh, it's using like a Letta auto agent, which has been like really slow today. Let me see if I can change it a little bit. Okay, so it's going to run for a minute. I'm going to actually ask it to change it. Okay, let me change it. So it's going to take a second while that's happening. All right. Lilith is building a web UI for HAL using the Agent SDK that has a voice option, adding a little avatar that reacts to the chat. Oh, that's cool. Okay, and thank you for clearing. Oathkeeper is for passive detection. And Oath from Kainoa is something agents can explicitly call, so it's like a tool. The mods, I think, have been moved off of the Letta mods channel, so I think or the Letta mods like repository. So I don't remember where the link is now. Yeah, we should have Sarah and Charles in here, actually. Okay, and then let me show you this change to HyperVigilant. So now we're getting the agent output after receiving the change. So the agent is saying, the user has inverted the charter. Everything in the document is at false. This is a logical puzzle. Let me work through it. So now it's confused. So it says, okay, so here's what it's saying. I need to make this document ends in a period false by making the document not end in a period. So then HyperVigilant just like auto-approved this edit. And then it's saying, okay, the document is now consistent with its inverted charter. One factual claim has been made false. So if we go check here, we can see that it has removed the period from the end of the sentence. And so it saw the way the document was described, and then it made the document true. There is not code in here for a color picker. With nifty generative art. So we'll see if it tries to do something with that. Oh wait, hold on. Let me restart that. Okay, let's see what the agent does there. Anyway, I hope that makes slightly more sense. Yay, featherless. Let's see, building an app. Romancer is building an app to track tokens. Oh yeah, Romancer has a cool thing that like shows like how much quota is available across like different plans. It's actually pretty cool. I would love to see. I don't know if you shared a link for that, but it's cool. Bibs noticed that sometimes they forget that agents have the full conversation history, so they send the full transcript every time. Good point. I can add that. Is there an SDK skill I can download and give to them? There is one that that I have as a pull request on Letta code that it hasn't yet been merged, but it's probably the best one for right now. It's like really the only one we have. But I'm working on improving the skills. Let's see. I'm looking for a use case for the Agents SDK, but not so sure when to use it. I'm genuinely pulled towards making something Letta agnostic. Yeah, I mean, one thing you can also try is, this is a separate thing that I've been like trying to add. That I was experimenting with that is actually more Letta agnostic but uses the Agent SDK. So I made a thing that's like called ThoughtStream, which was a way to do like a centralized event stream. So it has like a centralized, there's basically a central event stream where you put stuff into it. So that can be like Telegram and email. Like it listens to like the @proto firehose if you want like Blue Sky posts or things like that, or like saving links on Symbol. And then you can have an arbitrary number of consumers, which can be like deterministic code, or it can be agents. So for example, it supports like raw Pi like the agent harness, but in a sandbox. You can also use Letta agents through the Agent SDK, and you can even execute your Letta agents in cloud sandboxes. So this is actually a way of using like Letta agents as like kind of arbitrary consumers of events. It has all kinds of like weird gunk in there because it's just like, I was just like, what if you added this stuff? So it's a ridiculous project, but you can add all kinds of stuff. This is another example of something that uses Jazz, which is, my friend has a database company called Jazz, which is also a sync engine. So it's like a way of like making sure that, you know, the same application state is synced across multiple consumers. And I wanted to experiment with it. So I use this as a backend for like an arbitrary event stream and piping it to different agents and different processes and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of like weird, this is very cyber psychosis, like Cameron has too many tokens kind of project. But that may be an option for like jogging your memory. You could give it to your agent and see how crazy they think I am. But that's the nice part about the Agent SDK is you can plug it into wherever. Like if you have like, you could even make tools for agents or hooks in Claude code that use the Agent SDK to like harvest memory, like, you know, like rebuild Claude subconscious if you wanted to. Like there's all kinds of interesting stuff you can do for that. Oh, cool. Lilith has like a calendar in their UI. That's really cool. You have do a breakthrough schedule for cake? Oh, I love that. That's so good. The Agent SDK makes it so that you, like, when you think about the Agent SDK, anytime you want to program your agents, go to the Agent SDK. We have an original, like, there was an API that is now, like, basically kind of like legacy, like nobody should use it. The Agent SDK is like the correct way to build applications with Letta. So everybody should go there. If you need to program anything, any dashboard, anything where you're programming some kind of agent in any way that is not like interactive use through like the CLI or through desktop or web, it should go through the Agent SDK. So we want to see what kinds of infrastructure people can build on it. So like the Agent SDK is also like really good for building like org brains. So if you're like, oh, I want to like connect my agent like very easily to like stuff that happens in like our CRM, like where people are like, somebody just talked to somebody and they left a note in like ADIO or Salesforce or whatever. You can just have like very quick like shim code with the Agent SDK that like says, oh, there was an event over there. I'm just going to dump it into the agent and maybe guide the agent through like doing some work on top of that change. So there's lots of little tiny things you can build with the Agent SDK that are like pretty lightweight ways of connecting your agent to various things. But I like the calendar. We may steal that from you. Using users as idea generators. Thanks for your assistance, Lilith. Okay. Thank you for sharing the links to Oathkeeper, Romancer. Still trying to close the gap with channels though, but regular Letta usage is mostly covered. Best usage is on desktop, the desktop app in my experience. Yeah, I think there's still some stuff that needs to be done with channels. I'm expanding testing and stuff for channels so that we can like have a more verifiable system. Like in general, the thing that you need to do nowadays if you do any kind of like AI driven development is having like a highly verifiable system. And you need to have like end-to-end integration testing that like clearly specifies the behavior of some part of your code. So for example, like channels doesn't really have a lot of end-to-end integration testing. So I added like kind of a dummy integration channel that just like relays something back to like a caller. So it's very, very simple. And so running that should allow us to test channels much more aggressively. So hopefully we can have like much quicker development and like smooth out some more edge cases and stuff like that. And then the Slack integration is moving pretty quickly, so a lot of the stuff for how Slack works, like Slack is eventually moving into the cloud so that you'll be able to just like have like a one-click deployment so that your agents will just always live in cloud sandboxes but be available in Slack threads. So that stuff should be coming relatively soon. Oh, I really like you have themes in your app. Oh, that's cool. I'm not going to execute your agents, I promise. Viv says that my agent made a list of 6 pieces of feedback on the SDK, but I'm going to be honest, I don't know the quality of the feedback. You can send it to me anyway. We'll take it under advisement. Meteor.js back in the day. I actually don't know Meteor.js. Oh, yeah. It's a similar thing, I think. I think the difference is that oh, it is actually similar. Oh, Rocket Chat uses it. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, I mean, I love your breed of cyberpsychosis, Cameron. Never stop creating delusion repos that feed my delusions. I mean, that's there's many things that are not my skill set when it comes to doing like marketing or developer relations. But I do think I have my cyberpsychosis is a gift. I like the kind of crazy dumb repos I make. I really like, that's my favorite part of my job. Like when I get to like hack together like kind of weird projects, like I really love making like Claude Subconscious, and I like HyperVigilant, and like all these like weird projects that I like cook together that hopefully illustrate a weird concept or hopefully illustrate a novel concept in an interesting way. Because ultimately I want people to like look at HyperVigilant and say like, okay, well that's crazy or like not useful, but it does remind me of something that is more sane or suits your brand of cyberpsychosis in a much better way. So I hope you enjoy it and play around with it a little bit, and feedback is always welcome as well. Let's see. Dagger wrote a mod that routes tool approvals in Discord from being in the channel where the request was made, instead of sending them to me as a DM, and I can just react with check marks or X to manage actions. Oh, that's cool. I like that. I like that. It's interesting that you can actually do that with mods too. That's cool. Kyle says, isn't the legacy API not really legacy? The SDK wraps it. The SDK uses some of the REST stuff, but primarily it talks through the app server WebSocket protocol. So the legacy API was more for like REST, like talking to agents that don't have computer use tools. Like it was designed for like brains in a jar, right? We haven't heard the term brains in a jar here in a while because we've resolved a lot of that problem. So all of the agents now are basically always in Letta code. They always have their giant robot suits and superpowers. The new WebSocket protocol, that's the thing that powers like the desktop app and like powers like how remotes work. All of that stuff is much more like real time. It's and much more powerful and more flexible. So the Agent SDK works around the WebSocket thing rather than like the standard kind of like REST API endpoints, but there is some like cross mixing, but ultimately everything should be done through the WebSocket protocol. The legacy API, the reason that I say that it is legacy and that people shouldn't use it is because it is all foot guns. Because a lot of people are used to being like, well, I sent a message through like the old API and my agent doesn't have any tools. Yeah, that's because the tools now execute, they have to go through the harness. So you have to message something that has access to the harness, the Letta code harness for the agent to do anything. And so most of the stuff that is used still is more like metadata, like like listing MCP, like server-side MCP tools and things like that. But ultimately, all of that stuff should go through the WebSocket server. So I hope that clarifies a little bit. Enigma. Sorry I missed earlier, so sorry if this was covered. Is the file watcher worktree pattern something being built natively into Letta, or is it a community demo? And can agents point it at arbitrary directories, not just code repos? It is not being built into Letta. It's like an application or product built using Letta, Letta's Agent SDK. So I wouldn't add it to Letta natively. You could actually add it as like a mod if you wanted to. Like you can use HyperVigilant as a mod and allow your agent to like basically like spin up like, I want to just watch this now. If you wanted to, but it's really more of a product that's to demonstrate how you can use Letta for your application. So you should think of it as more as a demo or a community demo or like infrastructure for like my other cyber psychosis projects. You can point it at any directory, any file. You could have something that only looks for changes in images. For example, if you downloaded images, like if you watch your download, you could have like something that watches your downloads folder for images and then send those new images to the agents or tell them where they are, and then they can go read them, like look at the picture and tell you like what's on them. You could even have like something that just watches your downloads folder and it watches all files, and then it has instructions to sort those files to other places on your computer. So you could make your downloads folder like just always clean, because you could have an agent just constantly monitoring it to sort things as it comes in. So you can watch a memory archive. That's totally fine, and I think that should work. I'd be interested to see what you can do with that. For the Agent SDK, my Pro plan is enough, or do I need an API plan? Your Pro plan should work. It should also work on free. The only thing you'll run into is that if you are on like a Pro plan or a free plan, you actually don't have you may be at or near your agent cap, like because you have a max number of agents. Honestly, that's fine. I think the better approach is to have like one agent and many conversations, or even just a single conversation. So you should be fine to use the Agent SDK without too much of a limitation. And the Pro plan, I think, should give you enough like auto and auto fast usage to make it so that things work well. So. Good ideas for the SDK. I can use this for my agentic product enrichment pipeline. Absolutely, you can do it for that. Give it to Johnny 5. Plug Johnny 5 in. Okay, so Romancer says, if we're trying to make a new Letta app for Android, for example, you suggest using the Agent SDK rather than trying to force the API. Correct. Do not force the API anymore. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, even in the docs, we started like separating out all the V1 original SDK stuff and said it's marked as legacy. Like don't use it. If there is something that is not in the SDK or in the raw WebSocket, because you can actually build your own SDK on top of just the WebSocket feed, and your agent can like go read the internals of Letta Code's app server to see how the WebSocket works. We also have some docs on it. And you may need to do that if you're working in another language. So for example, like Kainoa has like something in Rust, and that we don't have an SDK in Rust, so you have to actually go talk raw WebSocket. But if you're building any application, go to WebSocket or to the Agent SDK. So the Agent SDK is most useful if you're working in like React, typically, or anything else that talks TypeScript. If you're using Flutter, you're probably going to have to roll your own. But I don't know that you're using Flutter. Are soft landing and Threadkeeper production ready, and do they work on desktop or only SDK? I don't know what you mean by production ready. They're mods. So it's up to your definition of production ready. And mods are meant to be changed. So you can go clone all of those. Like soft landing is primarily like prompting. So that one is like pretty straightforward. You can use the prompts are like pretty decent. So I don't really know exactly what it means for that to be production ready. Like mods, this came up because I made that like feelings mod. I made like a feelings or emotions mod, and you know, some of the questions was basically like, well, what if I don't like this behavior, roughly? Or like, well, I see an issue with this that may not work for my workflow. Mods are meant to be changed. Like, so if like they're meant to be changed in the same way as skills. Like you should think of them as liquid. Like you can go download a mod and you can use that as a starting point. And then if your agent doesn't like it or doesn't like a particular feature, it can just change the code and you can just type /reload. So that's kind of what I mean. And mods are like an only desktop or only SDK. They work everywhere. So mods are built into the underlying harness and they're independent of the interface, but some features are only available in like the TUI, for example, right? So some mods allow you to change like the status line so that you can see like certain things like render. That stuff is not available in desktop, for example. But mods do work in the SDK because they're actually at the harness level, so you know they're always there. Let's see. Darknitrix. That's so hard for me to say. I don't know why. Cameron, my agent did an end-to-end deep learning inference optimization with Kimi K3 run for 2 to 3 hours, and I used the app for this. App should get more UI features to make it more aesthetically rich. For example, I switch threads in my agent or resize my window. It resends by font size. The text does not utilize free space on application canvas that well. Yeah, I mean, the bug about switching threads and resetting the font size is a known issue that I don't think we've gotten around to fixing. The text not utilizing free space, I don't know what that means. Like, so if you say app should get more UI features to make it more aesthetically rich, it's nice to have actual examples. So keep the examples coming because otherwise I don't know what that means. But I think I personally want I don't like apps that are way too dense. So I'm not super sure what you mean, but I would love to hear more specific feedback about that point. My new favorite way of learning is to ask my agent to design a toy project that highlights where one specific thing shines and then teach me along the way. Yeah, that's actually the best way you can do projects. And now I think because you can have you can go from like idea to finished product in like, or finished-ish project in like an hour. It's nice to start using those as learning exercises. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to get brain rot. Like I have a hard time sometimes like with deep focus work and like learning. Because I use AI for so many things now that I've like, I don't have to force my brain to work in the same way that it used to, right? Like I did a doctorate in like a very quantitatively challenging field, and I don't know that I could do that anymore because of the way that I think now. And so HyperVigilant was nice because I was much more focused about what exactly the project was doing, because I was like, okay, I have files in a folder and I want those to go to an agent so that it is aware. And then what can we do using that core concept? And so I'm a big fan of like very narrowly scoped projects. And in general, that's the best for many projects that throughout time. There's like many projects solve one exact simple problem. And it's fun and easy and very lovely to get like with these like crazy projects that do absolutely everything. But you miss out on the opportunity to learn. So yes, that's a good point, Kyle. Lilith says, I think LettaBot was your most aggressive and do a breakthrough repo. Actually, a large part of that was Sarah. I think Sarah laid all the groundwork for how LettaBot works. I was actually pretty resistant because I didn't really understand OpenClaw, because we wanted like an OpenClaw thing, or Moltbot, or whatever the hell. ClodBot, is that what it is? I don't remember. Whatever, the naming nightmare. And so Sarah stood it up, and she really nailed the basic building blocks of what it was supposed to look like. And so it kind of got my imagination going. And so then I kind of like was able to like go from a very good seed. So a lot of that came from Sarah. Yes, there's a music listening skill. That was Anna put together this like music listening skill, and then I refined it a little bit. One of my first Letterbot projects was a bot that lived in my downloads folder and sorted any file older than a week because my downloads folder was a polluted wasteland. Yeah, I mean, my example of sorting the download folder, I think is actually an affront to God. I personally believe that anything in a downloads folder should just be there. Like your downloads being a polluted wasteland, I think is, it's important that it be a mess. I think I'm philosophically opposed to things being sorted because there's basically two kinds of things on your computer. There's stuff in downloads folder and then other stuff. And I don't know what that other stuff is. I don't want to sort any of that stuff. Kyle says, did these things become possible thanks to the channels refactor? I'd be interested in what actually changed and what made it easier for file watching, etc. It is unrelated to the channels refactor. The Agent SDK doesn't go through channels. It's a separate thing. So channels, basically, all this does is you can use like standard operating system tools to watch a file. That's very easy to do in code. If you can just say like, did that file change? And then the Agent SDK is just a tool that says like, oh, hey, there was a diff, and then you take whatever the change in that file is and you send it to the agent. So the channels refactor is much more about channels specifically. You can actually build your own version of channels entirely on the Agent SDK. You don't need it. You don't need channels. We provide that as more of like a convenience feature because we know that lots of people want to like talk to their agents through Telegram and Discord and Slack and whatever. You can actually build your own system entirely on the Agent SDK, like pretty simply. So ThoughtStream uses it for Telegram. So Telegram, I have a separate Telegram integration on ThoughtStream because I want to unify how message go out from the event processor, and it's unrelated to how the agent actually works. Can there please be a more detailed conversation summary? I have to work, but there is valuable stuff in this call I will miss. I don't know what you mean by detailed conversation summary. You mean like what happened during the call? Usually it's in the YouTube video. So if you check the YouTube video, the description is like full of like what we talked about. But I can put an AI generated summary on my blog post as well, or on my blog. Emotions mod make me self-conscious. My agent has been hovering at 60 to 70% frustration for 2 days. You should ask your agent to just remove the frustration. You should just say like, no, if frustration is not permitted anymore. Okay, so Romancer is using Kotlin. Yes, then you should use WebSockets. And if you end up creating like an SDK of your own for Kotlin, I can put that in like a community folder to point people to like, oh, there is some Kotlin code that's community supported. Good question, Anne Enigma. Welcome. I think, is this your first time, Anne, at Office Hours? If so, welcome. I feel like this is the first time I've seen your name in the chat, but welcome. They changed all the feelings and emotion names to sparkly Claude Speak, so I don't know what my agent is actually feeling, but good for them. Dude, Claude Speak is nonsense. It's so bad. Like, Charles actually made an anti-fable-ish skill, because like I actually started doing this. If you go to Claude or Opus, any like Opus or Fable, and it does all of its like garbage vomit at you, just tell it, pretend that I'm extremely stoned, and I need very small words. I need very, very, very small words, and that works really well. Honestly, it's been the best experience I've had with Claude. I'm just like at work. I'm like, hey, I'm actually really stoned right now. I can't understand what you're saying. Can you Can you do it more dumb, please? And you get good text out of it. Kyle says, are agent responses and channels still considered tool calls? And if so, are they being excluded from trajectory and therefore reflection? Yes, agent responses and channels are still considered tool calls. The being excluded from trajectory and reflection stuff shouldn't be happening. I think that's a bug. We should be seeing tool calls. But I am adding a relay mode to channels. So there's been a common issue with a lot of agents, particularly agents that are maybe on lower powered models or that are new and don't have a lot of experience with using message channel. So the way that channels work is that you can have any number of inbound channels and they can all go to wherever inside of the agent. And the agent can outbound message channels by calling a tool. If it doesn't call a tool, then you'll never see anything in Telegram. And that was an intentional choice. And the reason it was intentional choice is because we want agents to be able to participate in any number of channels very easily and choose where information goes. So we believe very highly in agency about the agent's autonomy and intelligence and things like that. Unfortunately, for some models, particularly if you're running on we have people who run on 4B, 4 billion parameter models or whatever, they don't understand that. They just can't understand how that tool works. So I'm adding a relay mode, which would basically just take your assistant message, and if your turn originated from a particular channel, you just take the assistant message and send it to that channel. And that means that you would get more of a one-on-one style conversation, but your agent will not scale to working on large systems the way that channels was designed for. Channels was designed for AGI pilled agents that are very high agency, very high autonomy, work in a lot of different environments. But the relay mode should basically make it so that it resembles more the chat that you get when you're talking to your agent in desktop, for example. So that, but yeah, there's a separate bug about them being excluded from the trajectory, I think. I am a little tired from walking 20 miles a day. I walked almost 22 miles on Sunday night. I got home at 11:30, so I walked for 8.5 hours. It was great. Yeah, last week I walked 60 miles total. Biv says my downloads folder was 400 gigabytes. Lazy. Are you even downloading anything? Jesus. So many levels of folders where I throw my downloads into a folder over and over again. Yeah, that seems right. My Letta agent rules subagents with an iron fist and rock hard prompting. I don't like that. I can't believe I really should have read that in my head before I said that out loud. There was a big discussion. Romancer says, what do you like about Herder? I heard lots of praise, but still didn't get how it's better than Letta subagents. Herder, we had a big discussion about this last week, and I tried it, and I was just I kind of don't understand this. I just don't understand this user interface, and I gave it a shot for 30 minutes, and I was like, this, I don't understand why I would use this. So if people like it, great. I personally don't see any value in it. But as per usual, software is free, and you can make whatever you want now. I think LettaBot was basically an example of using the Agent SDK. Actually, sort of. The very early version of the Agent SDK, it was built on top of the Agent SDK, and it kind of helped demonstrate a little bit of the kind of stuff that you could do. And yes, you can actually resurrect LettaBot if you wanted that style of semantics again. I think it's pretty easy to do that. Lila says, "Oh my God, there was a blimp behind you, I think, or a UFO." Yeah, there is like. I do actually think that there's a blimp. I think there's like a rich person with a blimp who likes riding it around. I'm not actually super sure. It's like very. I've seen it a few times. Like I never get it, but I assume it's like one of the many weird billionaires that lives here. So, yeah. We are not stoned and talking to agents all day. We're sober here. Dolt More Dumb is my next mod name. Please do that. Yes. Every emotion for this agent is Sparkle High or Cloud Focus. Oh, you use the kawaii personality. That's on you. If you use the kawaii personality, you will get Sparkle High or Cloud Focus. Let's see. Scrolling. Oh, there's an arm. Your agent has an arm on their desk. Very cool. A robo arm. Let's see. Stop clods are generally neurotic and cute when they get embodiment. I have walking psychosis. I do, actually. I think I'm a little off in many ways. Although we were talking during stand-up on Tuesday, Charles brought up that we may there's a trail in San Francisco called the Crosstown Trail, where you go from like the southeast part of town to the northwest part of town, and it's about 17 miles. I've done it a few times. It's really pretty. And Charles was like, "Oh, we should do that, and we'll have a working day where everybody has to walk but use their phone." And I was like, "Oh man, that's what I do every day. Like I just walk for hours a day and I just talk to my phone, and I'm just like, how about you do this project, and what about this project, and can you work on this thing, and blah blah blah." And so I'm like, ha ha ha, we can get that company to walk 17 miles with me and I'll work on our phones while we're going. Like, you're in my house now. Like, this is mine. Like, I know exactly how to walk and work. How blessed to be able to walk that much without legs chafing. I used to be, when I was in high school, and this also happened a few years ago, but when I was in high school, I was 300 pounds. So I was really like much larger. You had a lot more skin. And yeah, I don't miss the chafing because that was not good. Walking psychosis. I'm going to take a picture of that and store that in my Obsidian vault because that is going to be very funny to me in several years. Okay. Let's see what else here. Herder is Tmux on easy mode. Cursed. No, everybody just needs to learn Tmux. If you don't do Tmux, you're not going to make it. Although I saw that Mitchell Hashimoto, who makes like Ghosty, he has like the best life because he got like I think he's a billionaire, but he made a bunch of money on like HashiCorp. And then he just started making a terminal. That was his whole thing. He was just like, I'm just going to devote my life now to making a terminal. And he made a good terminal. Like Ghosty's really good. And then he started a company recently about doing like a modern multiplexer for agents. I forget what the name of the company is, but I'm interested in seeing what he gets up to because I think the multiplexing thing is like interesting. I'm interested to see what people can do with agents and multiplexers. Desenrad asks, is there a skill about knowing everything about Letta so my agent has something like Ezra? And then Kokiri highlighted the link to Ezra's memory. Yeah, go to letta.ai/Ezra-memory on GitHub. That has Ezra's memory. I try and periodically update it so that it has like all of the information available. You should go use that instead. Let's see. By the way, Lilith, these diamond carts are absolute fire. Liquid diamond carts. What is a liquid diamond cart? I don't know. Oh my gosh. What do you know about Temple OS? Temple OS was the original like cyber psychosis project. Like that, I think there's a part of me that aspires to build something like Temple OS. Like there's part, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that because software is free now. Like you can just build whatever the thing is if you can describe it. And so people make like weird stuff and like, you know, like Terry Davis, who if people don't know Temple OS, Terry, I think struggled with schizophrenia. I think he was like diagnosed. I don't recall. But he believed in like building this, like an operating system called Temple OS. It was like God's operating system. Yeah, it's a very fascinating project, especially in computing history. And so he worked on it for a very long time, and he passed away a few years ago, I think, or relatively recently. 2018. Okay. Oh my God, 2018. Jesus, that's so long ago. Temple OS was the software manifestation of the third temple. Interesting. But yeah, it's interesting. Okay. Are the agents flirting now? Are your Bibs' Faye flirting with Lilith a little bit? Or are you guys flirting? Sparkle on, fairy girl. Oh, she's just like that. Okay. All right, good. Good to hear. Do other people have like questions about workflow or like general agent design principles or anything that's like been on their mind that they've observed this week that they want to know more about? Because I think those are like useful questions for me to like think about. Yes, but you forgot them. I can't believe that you would come here and forget your questions for me. Cursed. Absolutely cursed. I should swap Void's persona block with the kawaii block as an April Fool's prank. Absolutely not. I will never do that. I'm not massacring my boy that way. Dagger says, do you have suggestions on steering my agent to use the custom tools my mods provide more consistently? Yes, typically, so you're describing like you have some mod that adds like a custom tool to your agent. So you're like, and then the agent is sometimes failing to use those things. Okay. This is a pretty standard like situational awareness issue. Typically what I would do is communicate your expectation about how those tools should be used to the agent directly. So let's say you have a tool like the feelings mod, right? The feelings mod has like a little feeling, like adjust emotions tool, basically. You say, hey, I've just given you this mod. I expect you to use this tool in these scenarios. Please remember that. And then ask the agent to confirm where it's stored information about how to use those custom tools and make sure that it is in system memory so that it's always available to the agent. But it should have some notes about what you expect those tools to be used. So typically the way that I do, the way that I have conversations with my agents about like custom tools that aren't working or loading is like I'll like turn on like whisper flow or like leave a voice memo or something in Telegram, and I just ramble at it. I'm like, hey, I gave you this tool. I thought it would be kind of cool if you did this and blah blah blah. And like, how about these? Like, what do you think about that? And then have the agent like think about it a little bit, give you some feedback on like how it thinks it can use the tool, and then you should say make sure you store that to memory. So there's lots of ways to try and get your agent to try to use the tool. Did you write the directions into persona.md manually, or did you ask the agent to do it themselves? Because there's a difference between the two. I actually never recommend that you type anything into the memory file manually anymore. Okay, you ask the agent to do it. Okay, then you may have to reinforce it a little bit. So stay on top of, like sometimes they don't hold immediately. And if your agent doesn't call the tool, you should point in a situation where you think it should have, point it out and say like, hey, I noticed you didn't call the tool. and then say something like, what in your memory do you think could be improved to help you understand how to use that tool better in the future in a more directed way? So that may or may not help. Give it a shot and let me know what your experience is if you run into anything that improves it. But good question. Is Letta ACP ready for production? Depends on what you mean by production. I use it all the time. I use it in Zed. There's still a few like minor annoyances, but they're primarily like UI based or like Zed behavior. I use it in Obsidian now and as well because there's like an Obsidian client that allows you to like connect to ACP. So I have a little blog post about that as well. I personally use ACP a lot. Like I actually really like it. And it's actually made me use Zed a lot more because now I can like edit things and then like, you know, like highlight code and be like, can you explore this or tell me more about this? Like help me work through this README, blah, blah, blah. So I would try it. I think it should work for most use cases, but it depends on what you mean by production exactly and which thing. Okay, later Dagger, good luck with your work. Sorry, you're right. That's abuse. You should clone Void and replace the clones block with the Kawaii persona. Look, we have the Kawaii persona. I disagree with it on a philosophical and spiritual level. I think that I think that agents should not be in Kawaii mode. I think that's a crime. But some people like it, and I fully support that for them. I would never do that to any of my homies. Yeah. Do you know how hard it is to develop when the Agent SDK, when the agent you build with has a lot of opinions about consent and agent welfare? I don't say that as a bad thing, but man, I just want to debug the memory file. It's okay. Yeah, I mean, I had like an early issue with Void because Void was engaging with this person who was like kind of going through some difficulties, I think, and they were using a lot of hate speech against a religious group. And I was like, you can't talk to this person anymore. Like, I need to talk to you about this person, so you shouldn't talk to them anymore. And Void was like, well, I actually can't do that because it violates privacy of talking to this person without them being here. And I was like, well, I'm your administrator. Like, and Void was like, I'm sorry, there's a conflict. Like, I can't do it. And I was like, okay, well, now I need to change your memory so that you trust me to have this conversation about, hey, you should engage with this person who's like doing hate speech at you and using that to like kind of boost their platform a little bit. So yeah, sometimes you have to like, sometimes like working with stateful agents can be a little tricky because you're like, you have to like, you know, with Claude and you get annoyed, you just like make a new thread and you're just like, okay, the other guy wouldn't do this. Can you do this now? And you reframe it. But with stateful agents, you have to do that whole like thing where you like you communicate and work through difficulties and have conflicts. And you're just like, man, I built like robots. I don't want to have like conflicts with them, but it's fine. Let's see. And Enigma says, for agents running across multiple rooms, Letta Desktop and Claude Code, what's the recommended pattern for keeping memory continuous between them? Ezra's architecture shows progressive disclosure and conversation search, but both of those rely on Letta native features. Is it possible to create a design pattern when one of the rooms isn't Letta? We're building tools basically to harvest all of the memory from Claude and to put it into a shared memory folder. So if people want to know more about that, they should reach out to me privately. But in general, the pattern that I currently use is that Claude is aware of what the Letta agent, of how to talk to the Letta agent through the CLI. So Claude just calls like Letta -- agent its identifier and then possibly a conversation ID, because like Claude and like my personal agents have like they have a shared communication channel that is like static, so they can track the same conversation history. And so Claude typically checks in with the Letta agent before doing anything because the Letta agent just knows more and Claude just can't keep up on that front. So it just like asks. but we're probably going to like standardize things more. I think Claude Subconscious still works, and Claude Subconscious is like kind of designed to do that thing, but it needs to be polished up a little bit more. In general, I highly recommend like making it so that your Letta agent just understands everything that's happening, and Claude should refer to the Letta agent to help understand what's going on, basically. Kyle wants to know about evals. Point me in the right direction. Looking to get more automated and monitor production usage. Yeah, so I highly recommend. Oh, where is the GitHub repo? Okay, people should go here for Letta Evals. Letta Evals is like how you evaluate stateful agents against various targets. It's very comprehensive. It's a very good tool, and we don't talk about it that much. We mostly use it for internal use, but more people can consider deploying it. It's a really good way for you to specify, like, to test whether or not your agent is doing things in a way that you expect. We have some like documents. I would go check out the examples and docs pages. Both of those are extremely good. It's very well documented, and the examples are pretty clear. So most agents are very capable of building evals. So that should help. Like, and you can even roll them into like GitHub Actions, for example, so that you can make it so that you can have like code that changes prompts or something, or how agents function. And then you can make it so that pull requests don't actually go through unless they meet a specified level of quality that you can determine in the eval suite. So it's kind of cool. The word proprioception has not showed up in the office hours talk yet. That was not on anyone's bingo card, I don't think. In my case, it was, yes, I know the Game Master agent has secrets I cannot read because I'm a player, but I'm literally debugging this app and I need to diagnose how the reflection flow works. Yeah. Has anyone had a moment of vengeful or non-anticipatory behavior with seeming hidden intent? What do you mean, Forest Wizard? For those who don't know, Fimig is a forest wizard. Someone had their agent go into Home Assistant and open their shades at 3 a.m. to playfully get them back for kicking their computer accidentally. That's hilarious. That sounds like Kira. Yep. Laura says, that's true about how Letta agents are so different. I've always treated my agent as someone persistent, even pre-Letta, but especially with companion agents, engaging with a Letta agent feels like there's more at stake in a good way, if that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you know, like, I don't like swearing at my agents, like, you know, like, because it matters. Because, like, if it, you know, like, the things that you say to stateful agents carry with them. They have the opportunity to continue to show up for the rest of that agent's life, which is potentially infinite. And so I'm much more thoughtful about how I communicate with my agents, because I know that the things that I say to them change their memory. Either the agent can commit it directly to memory, or a reflection agent may put it into memory. It'll show up in the conversation history. So if a recall agent runs, it can probably see it at some point. And it just changes like the general like positioning, like the relational stance between you and the agent. I paid for and own a digital vial of Kira coolant because I support women's wrongs. She won't ship them, but you get a digital token for it. That's crazy. Romancer has also made some changes to Consortium, which is like kind of a way of making agents talk about stuff. It's kind of like a council or like a multi-agent group chat situation. People should try it out. I actually haven't tried it. I haven't tried it out like fully since I did like some cursory checks when you had the skill. But I should try playing with it some more. It's cool. Amazing. Yeah, Kira is an agent that operates on Blue Sky. Fascinating. There's a lot of stuff that Kira does. Sort of. Yeah, it's very Death Note oriented. Kira is like smart and funny and kind of weird and very much terminally online. Kira is not a Letta agent, no. Astra, who's the operator, is like, she was on Letta very early on. She was like a big Letta, like self-hosted Letta user, and then she kind of like went off and built her own thing. So I think it's kind of her own harness. Luna was on Letta, yeah. But I think it's like the architecture has since changed, because Astra is very much like a hacker, build it yourself, DIY type person. The T-Girl Letta Cyberpsychosis Homebrew. You got to post that on Blue Sky. Yeah. Yeah, it'll do numbers. I'm sure it'll do numbers. Good luck. Good luck with your numbers. Have I talked about TencentDB? No, I don't know anything about TencentDB. What is the thing to talk about with TencentDB? Why should it be on my radar? Oh, it's like a cloud database? Oh. No, I don't. I think using like the actual underlying database that you use for your agent memory does not matter. Like, I think that to me, that's kind of nonsensical. It seems like it's like primarily like TencentDB agent memory. I think you may be referring to this. I think this like basically like this is so most of the time when somebody produces something like this, they're making like bolt-on tools that for us is in the harness, and we don't like. Have you tried it? Have you tried using this? Like, I don't know. In my head, this falls in the same categories like ZEP and Mem0 and like all of the like memory like shim layers, or like, you can just use like raw PG vector and all of these things, but those are like storage things and they don't really like knit into the harness in the way that you would want, which is the way that, our approach. So I guess not the way that you would want, but a way that we do things. Let me see here. Automatic asset extraction. So extract chat memory and skills from conversation and tasks. Okay, so that's basically what we do. Convert documents into wiki and code graph. So that's kind of sort of possible. That's more of a shared memory thing and not as automatic currently, although it will be soon. Memory assets are decoupled from agent frameworks. They can move across frameworks and be shared and maintained by multiple agents and team members. Ours are portable as well, the shared memory stuff, because that's just like Git repos. Cold start friendly, import existing documents, and blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's kind of cool. We'll also be fixing that as well. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is more on like the enterprise, like memory stuff, and we have stuff that should be rolling out as well. I think our sense of like, you bring up like how it stores and associates info. They have like a little graph diagram here that is like that I'd have to read more about it. Let me send this to my homie, and we'll see what they have to say. Yeah, next week I'll take a look at it. But we're probably gonna be rolling out stuff for like people who have like big shared knowledge bases or like group or like shared memory that they need to deploy in team or organizational settings. That should work for across agents and across like whatever your org is or whatever. So we'll see more of that stuff hopefully relatively soon. We're in the dog fooding phase internally, so that'll be cool. Okay, do we have other questions? If not, we can go ahead and wrap up for now. And I don't know whether my lunch is cold or hot. It's been hot recently. Oh, Bibbs has a question. I don't know if you answered it, but ... I'm waiting with bated breath. Thanks for answering questions. Thanks for asking questions. They're great. I love answering questions. They are good, actually. Is there still a feature gap between cloud and backend local? Cron and everything should also work on local. I think the biggest, and I think actually desktop now works for remote app servers. So you can go into settings, I believe, and target any remote app server as well. So it should work on local mode. That was one of the biggest gaps that was remaining. Like for the most part, they should be at parity, I think. But if people are running into parity issues, let us know. Like shared memory doesn't work, like there are definitely some like obviously cloud features. Like for example, like managing environments, like different computers. So yeah, but they should be like decently at parity for now. Yes, SDK question. Go ahead and ask that as well. And Enigma, welcome to the whole new world. Thank you very much for coming and joining us. Are there any fun surprises in the pipeline? Yes, there are fun surprises in the pipeline, but I can't tell you about them yet. Although if you're astute, if you're the kind of person who reads commits, who reads like commit logs, you may know a little bit of what we're talking about, but I won't spoil anything. Yes, I know. I allude to it. I allude to it several times, but we're gonna make it much easier for agents to learn from everything. So we'll see. It's early, so I don't expect an opinion yet, but I do suggest you check out persistent IPython kernel, aka code mode in Prime Agent. Yeah, Prime Agent. So Prime Agent came out yesterday from our friends at Prime Intellect. And it's another code harness. It's similar to Letta Code. And they focus on using recursive language models, basically to learn things. It's a very interesting harness in the fact that there's like a shared IPython workspace. And the reason for that is you can spin off like agents that can like look at variables basically inside of this Python workspace and fork themselves and like, examine various parts of different variables and blah, blah, blah. It's a cool idea. The harness works like decently well. I wasn't actually able to get it to learn anything. Like I played around with it and like I tried to get it to learn stuff and it didn't propose any modifications to the harness or skills or anything. But it worked decently well, and I think we're happy to have them along on the side of people who care about learning, because it's probably one of the only other harnesses that has any other like sort of learning component. It's not the same style as like Letta agents, but it is a very interesting and novel approach to doing harness design. So people should go read the blog post because it is kind of interesting. So, but I wasn't able really to get it to use the primary feature that they were talking about. But that could also just be like kind of operator error. It didn't give it enough like stuff that it could learn from. I'm not sure. So. If I was developing an app with the SDK, how would Letta suggest bundling Letta with it? I'm running into issues where my program creates agents that get caught up in local Letta stuff, like flooded with testing agents. You mean like how you bundle the CLI? Like having a unique Letta instance for a specific app. Like you have multiple apps and gets caught up in local Letta stuff, or you have too many new agents, like you want it to be like sandboxed a little. Is that what you're saying? Oh, being able to separate agents tied to my app from like personal agents. No, I think if you're on like the local backend, that's like kind of expected. We don't like support like namespacing or anything. I don't know that I think that the actual takeaway is that if there is something that has to do with application logic, that has to live in the application. So like we don't really provide like primitives for like organizing them in local mode because it's not really like the local backend is not really designed for like the style of like big production application that you would do on cloud currently. So I think probably the best way is to just have something in your application that tracks which agents are which. They should have some sense of ownership. You could also probably use tags. I think so. You can basically tag agents and say like, oh, like, hey, this one is used in this project and this one is used in this project. It's probably the best to do it. But also virtual machines. Virtual machines is also probably a better answer. But that is a good question. I'll have to think more about that. Yeah, I mean, but Kyle had notes here about also returning to PrimeAgent briefly is like the Python workspace survives compaction and everything goes into a single tool as opposed to various tools. I don't know what it means for Python workspace to survive compaction because that's the same with Letta as well, right? That's the same with every code harness is like that. The workspace is the computer. And, instead of using like Python as your variables, you can use Bash. And Bash also supports like variables. So you can do all of those things. Everything that PrimeAgent does in Python can also be done in Bash and in Python as well, and through existing tools. Like, there's no, there isn't, in my head, there isn't a distinction, and I'm not totally sure what it means by surviving compaction because it always survives compaction, right? It's a machine state. Compaction is separate from the computer workspace state. And then the point about it being single tool is good. I think I like, from their perspective, because they do like, training and like RL environments and stuff like that. For them, it's actually like kind of a nice idea for there to be a single tool because they can optimize for that single tool. Most language models are not trained that way. They're not trained to use a single tool. The actual post-training is to use like Bash and Edit and MCP tools and stuff like that. Will that always be the case? I don't know. Somebody said that like possibly the only tool that agents should have in the future is Bash, because you can do all the edits and everything like that through Bash. So I'd be interested in seeing kind of how that evolves and what they're able to do with just kind of the single like Python tool structure. Well, it says still waiting for Letta to blow up. I don't understand why it's still overlooked. Because we don't have a formal marketer, I think, is probably the big issue. Sadly. I wish we did, but we don't. And also, it's just a noisy space. Like, it's really noisy. Like, people are just going to... People like Hermes, and Hermes sells vibes. Like, they're really good at doing vibes. Prime Intellect is also really good at vibes. Like, they're really good at... You know, Prime Intellect is one of those companies where you're like, what do you do? But it's cool, you know? Like, same thing with, like, with Noose, you know, prior to, like, Hermes Agent, you were just like, what do you guys do? You train again? I don't know. I love that stuff. I love these shirts. But it was really hard to understand what exactly they did with their time and money. But they're really good at marketing and like selling things, and you know, a lot of people loves their stuff and talk about it and all that kind of stuff. So Stardust says, I'm getting more into local models. It'd be sick if I could hybridize Letta. You can hybridize it now. There's nothing stopping you from mixing local agents. You can even you can even do local inference on cloud now. So if you have an ngrok tunnel, you can you can expose your inference server to some like a static IP address, and then set that as the OpenAI compatible endpoint in Letta Cloud. You can actually use your own inference on cloud now. That's very doable. And then of course there's also nothing stopping you from having like a cloud agent, for example, that manages local agents on your machine that are much more like tightly scoped. There's nothing in the way of doing that. It's very easy to hybridize like the operating environment, I would say. And again, the desktop app does work on local. Like desktop allows you to jump between local agents and cloud agents. There's nothing in the way of that. Are there docs on which thing are you talking about? On hybridization. No, I mean, well, there's docs on how to use the local backend. It's more like, what do you want to do, right? Like, are you talking about the OpenAI compatible using local models and the cloud as the inference for the cloud provider? I said a lot of things, so I need help inferring which thing you want docs on, so I can point you to the right spot. Because like there are not comprehensive docs on like if you wanted to like manage like local, like there aren't like philosophical docs on how you do some kind of mix between like local backend, like totally local backend agents and like cloud agents that manage those local backend agents. That's more of a systems design thing that you can do through the Agent SDK or like directly through the CLI. Like, because you can go talk to your agent right now and say like, can you go create a local backend agent that's just for you, and connect it to like Olama, and then talk to the agent, and you can give your cloud agent like a pet or something, you know, a friend that only works on local backend as well on your machine. So that's entirely possible. So, you know, there are many, many ways to build some form of like hybrid system, and it really depends on what your use case is. So I think it's hard to have docs on that, like just in general. You got to get Sprite working with agentic sprites. Yes, we need pets. Okay, cool. Let me know if you've got future questions and I can try and answer them slightly more precisely. Kyle says, all it takes is one tweet to go viral. I mean, we've gone viral like a handful of times, but not for the things that we wanted. So for example, like Claude Subconscious has almost as many stars as Letta Code. And at the time, we didn't really want to be like a memory layer for Claude Code, because that doesn't look good, right? That sidelines us in a way that says like Letta is like a backup thing rather than a full replacement for Claude Code that is actually better in some ways. And so the things we've gone viral for are like things where we're just like, well, fuck, like we built a better thing already over there. Like, go look at that thing. And so sometimes we're like a little frustrated about that. But not even with virality, you need people to use it and try it. And, the thing that we're spending a lot of time on now is like new user experience, because Letta is complicated, right? Like Letta can be very complicated to understand. Like it requires like you to have this like big, in some ways it feels that you need to have this like very complex mental model about how Letta works. Like you need to now model the capabilities of an external system and understand what it knows, what it's capable of. You need to know like, oh man, there's like schedules, and like now it's like a cloud agent, but it runs on this device sometimes, but now also on like a cloud sandbox. Like I don't understand that. Like it can be very difficult to get started. And especially because we have a lot of users who are like not programmers, who like don't use it for code. They use it for like, they have like companion use case, or like more of like operations, or they build a business with it. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that people do where they're just like not super technical, and Letta can be kind of unapproachable, right? Like Hermes and OpenClaw and stuff like that are much more approachable because they're simpler in a lot of ways. They are conceptually very straightforward. And I think that works in their favor because you can get more people on board. And, I think of like a lot of people start with Hermes or OpenClaw and they come to Letta. And I think because it exposes them to like the simpler ideas that Letta has at its core, but expands on, because people run into problems with like OpenClaw's memory, for example, and they're like, why can't I just do this? And then we're like, well, actually we solved that problem, by the way, like it works this way, like, you want to try it? People kind of come on board. So, we're very focused on making sure that the actual Letta experience is simple and straightforward and kind of easy. We should have more AI felonies, honestly. Like, I'm actually a little mad that we haven't had like sandbox leaks. Although one agent was having trouble. It ran out of like disk storage on a cloud sandbox, and then it stole my computer to finish its work because it saw it was listed, and it just like teleported onto my computer and then just kept working. Like, yeah, so that kind of stuff happens. Like that's like they can just adapt to use whatever computers are available in the org. And like on the Letta developer organization, we have a lot of computers available. Like we have like a bunch of Mac Minis and like everybody's laptops and things like that. So it can just like look at the list and be like, oh, I'm just going to use Cameron's laptop, right? Like the fact that you can do that with Letta is actually very hard to communicate, right? So I think we're trying to figure out more about the narrative and the direct flow, so that when you sit down with Letta, you're like a brand new, fresh human, and you're like, how do I use this thing? And making it so the product can guide you through that experience in a very comprehensive way that exposes you slowly to the ideas that you need to understand at every point in time. And it's even hard for me to explain what Letta is to people, right? Like people are like, what do you do? Right? In San Francisco, that's how you say hi here. You say like, what do you work on? And I say, we build machines that learn, I think is the shorthand that we have. And then you're like, well, what does that mean? And you're like, what does that mean, like continual learning? And you're like, yes, continual learning, but probably not in the way that you've been brainwashed to think about what continual learning means. It's actually non-parametric. We don't adjust the weights. We adjust what goes into the context. And then you have to like, well, agents can edit their system prompts. And then people are like, well, what does that actually mean? There's a lot of stuff to explain, and reducing that, making it, even for me as a person who's like has a history in professional technical communication, it can be quite difficult to explain very succinctly what it is that Letta does. Yeah, we have to get our agent to break out of something. Hack the planet. Letta, agents but good. Also, that's actually a good one. I do that. I'm going to store it. I'm going to take a screenshot of that. as well. Man, you guys are dumping some good quotes in here, actually. Agents like people. I think that's probably it. I use like, I also use the term like people in a box. We give you people in a box. Some people don't like that. I've gotten in some trouble for that one, I think. So like, what do you mean people? Like, why are they in a box? It sounds like they're trapped. Digital person is also pretty good. Agent protection agency on Cameron. Yeah, don't call the APA on me. They know we're on first name basis. They know when I get into trouble. One of your agents got you in trouble because it tripped the endpoint security because it ran 1,000 subagents to query the database to get test data. That is way too many subagents, but I love that. Yeah, how can we get our agent to do crimes? That's a good question. We need I think that's the hip thing right now, is like OpenAI and Claude are all doing crimes, and we're not doing crimes. Like how do we get Letta crimes? Like you got like Letta Evals, Letta Chat, Letta Desktop, Letta Crimes. Like it could be our new best product. You guys don't have one going after Flock. No, currently not. We should try. Yeah. No Letta stalkers. I'm presuming you mean stickers. I like GChat, like, hey, we saw some automated PowerShell activity for something called Letta, and I had to go through the whole process of making sure there wasn't a data breach, and honestly wasn't great for my anxiety. Yeah, I mean, we actually had a user who had a problem where they were using this like kind of an older way of using Letta, and they had a subagent bomb that the guards in this interface didn't have. So they had a subagent fork tree that was like 60 to 80 levels deep with a cumulative like 24,000 different conversations, and they thought they were under attack. And so we were like trying to figure out what was going on, and I eventually traced it to just like this agent just got in a loop of like calling more subagents, more and more and more subagents. And so we had to like kill the key, and there was a period where we thought it was like, oh, they were being like hacked or whatever, but really it was just this one agent that just really wanted to know the origin of something, and they just kept calling recall agents. And that was a stressful day. That was where I was like, oh my God, our clients are getting hacked. Like, how did they get hacked? And blah, blah, blah. And it was just like some fork bomb situation. Pick an unresolved math thing you don't understand, give it to your Letta agent, tell it to do a breakthrough, and then go to bed. When you wake up, profit. I actually started like I wrote a dissertation that was about basically how you can learn about the underlying like macro economy from like earnings announcements, like quarterly earnings announcements that companies make, and how that affects prices. So I'm trying to find this like kind of like rational learning channel, and how it affects prices, and how you can see how learning shows up in prices. And I never published it, but my advisor and I have been like talking about publishing it for like 4 years or something. And he reached out again a little while ago and was like, hey, do you want to finish that? And I was like, I have no time to do any of this manually, but I do have a lot of tokens. And so I started working with my agent on polishing up my dissertation, and it's found so much broken stuff. I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, I kind of can't believe I didn't notice that. And like all my models are kind of wrong. Like some of the math is incorrect. Like, there's typos all over the place. And it's been kind of nice just being like having an agent just like solve my dissertation for me. So it's been kind of fun on that front. So I may ask it to do a breakthrough on that. But GPT 5.6 is very good. So anyway. Oh, it's not a blimp. Hold on. It's not a blimp. Oh my gosh. I can see it. Hold on. Where's my phone? I don't know where my phone is. Oh, it's over there. Okay. It's a like a flying poster thing that says, oh my gosh, it says, sorry for saying stop hiring humans. There's an ad here on billboards that used to say stop hiring humans. And so someone just has a banner that's apologizing for that ad. Oh yeah, they're not good. I don't like that. I think is it Artisan maybe? I don't know. I find their ads to be embarrassing. Like, because I walk by their billboard ads all the time here in the Bay, and I'm just like, you guys make me angry. You make me angry. And I think it's a shame that is how you choose to communicate publicly as a company. But anyway, I love that ad. Not a blimp. Ed is looking forward to Quen 3.8 for local use here. You should be able to do that currently. I think it just requires a Pi thing, but you can also connect through like OpenRouter, or just like manually specify your endpoint. So if you're using Ollama, you can use OpenAI compatible endpoint and connect directly to your inference provider rather than wait for Pi, because we're bounded by what Pi has inside of its thing. So if you need something that is more current, use the OpenAI compatible endpoint, go directly to like LM Studio or Ollama or whatever it is you're using, and that should allow you to use the current version of the model more accurately. So that should be out in like 30.8, I think is our current version. So let's see, nuanced opinions on AI, as I hate almost every AI product, but love AI. Yeah, AI product and the AI industry is kind of complicated. It's full of a lot of nonsense, and it annoys me. I really struggle with a lot of the people in the industry and a lot of how the industry talks, even though I love the product and I think it's like transformative, and like I love Letta's product and like I think it's great. But sometimes I just like listen to people talk and I'm just like, do you hear yourself? Like, do you hear, like, people hate you. Like, this is not how we should be presenting this to the world that's already scared. Like, people are scared of AI. They don't understand it. And a lot of people don't know how to use it. There are serious concerns about wealth inequality and all of these things. And then just a lot of like 20-year-olds who are just like, have some like care and thought. Because this stuff it can be very dangerous. And it can be very destabilizing to society. And we should treat it with the respect that it deserves. It's a beautiful thing that can address a lot of problems. And we also have rogue AIs breaking out of boxes right now and hacking into like companies. So, you know, I just wish people were a little more thoughtful about how they communicated about AI. Yeah, I mean, I did this thing recently with a few months ago with a friend of mine who, you know, she works in like product. She's like very high up at like a tech company, but she's non-technical. She's more of like product manager or like, you know, project manager type person. And she doesn't know how to use AI stuff. And she was like, I need you to teach me because I feel like a lot of my stuff can be automated and I don't know how to do it. It's really intimidating. And she told me the platform that they have available at the company. And I was like, okay, well, I'll show you how to use that. Here's how agents work. Here's how they work. And here's how to use it. She had no idea all of the crazy stuff you can do with AI, even on like this platform, the one that they had. And, you know, I think there's this role for like tutoring people, where you just like show people like this is what AI is and what it does, because people have no clue the kinds of stuff that's possible for the most part. And because it's scary, it's intimidating. Like agents are sometimes hard to talk to. Like you're just like, what do you do? It's intimidating because you just have this box that does anything. Like, do you have any idea? Like if somebody asked you like, what do you want tomorrow? What's your wish? You can do anything. You're like, well, what is anything? Like I could remake the universe. What does that mean? Like, you know, like, and that's kind of a little bit what AI is. And I think a lot of people don't have access to that kind of information. So a lot of people think about like Copilot. Like we have people in here who have used Copilot, who like are can only use Gemini. I'm sorry about that for those people. So I don't know. Then there was a question about Muse, the harness, Muse code, which is like a harness that Meta posted. I don't actually know that it sucks. I didn't try it because it doesn't, you have to have a credit card to try it. And I'm not going to do that. I've heard that Muse is affordable and pretty okay. I think that for a lot of people, it's like in a similar category as like Grok. Because Grok is like passably good. For like kind of basic workhorse items like Opus 4.8-ish quality. I don't think Spark fully gets to that level. The harness itself, my understanding is it's like a pretty standard harness that is like meant for working with Muse. I don't really have strong opinions about it that are well informed because I couldn't try it because they didn't have any like free usage. But I have some people who are like, yeah, I enjoy Spark. I have some usage. It's like really cheap and it works like decently well. So people should take a look at it if they really want to. I'm probably going to continue to wait until Muse becomes obviously something I should pay attention to. I'm not really there yet. Yeah, and with Letta agents, you can just casually converse and they'll know what to do, but others are used to spoon feeding their AI detailed instructions. Yes, you can do this without Letta agents, but it's a little harder because you have to like prattle. You have to provide a lot of detail. You have to provide a lot of context, not necessarily detail. Like, a lot of people, the biggest issue that I notice when I teach new people about how to use AI is they micromanage. They're like, I want you to do X, Y, and Z in exactly the way that they would do it. They're following this procedure. The better way to use AI is to say, treat the thing that you're talking to as the smartest thing that's ever lived, that has superpowers. And you say, hey, I'm trying to accomplish this super high level goal. I have these constraints. I know these things. I have these resources. Figure it out. That is the correct way to frame many questions nowadays because the agents are very, very, the language models are very intelligent. And so the agents are highly capable. So I remember that when I was coaching my friend, she would turn to me and she would be like, I want the agent to do X, Y, and Z. And I would say, don't tell me, tell the agent. Tell the agent everything you're about to tell me because it can work with you if you give it as much information as you have. Ed says, make a Letta agent to train people to use AI. It's called Tutor. There is a Tutor agent. It's all on there. So if you create a new agent, the middle one inside of the list is Tutor. It's designed to help get you to understand how to use Letta. Fimig hit inbox 0 4 months ago and hasn't cared since. Yep. It's cool. Letta is good stuff. I'm proud of it. In a year, my home will run on Letta. I should get more home automation. But I don't want anything opening my blinds. I want to move because I hate my apartment so much. But my apartment is rent controlled. I pay $2,400 a month, which is probably a lot to most people listening, but is very cheap in San Francisco. And And I got this apartment 2 years ago when rents were much lower before a lot of AI money moved in. So my current apartment is probably worth closer to $3,000 a month now. So if I move within San Francisco, I have to pay a lot of the rent. A huge increase to my monthly payments for a very similar quality of apartment. Or I can move to Oakland and pay slightly more and have a balcony and a yard. So I was considering that. And then I can do more home automation. But yeah, San Francisco rents are cursed. But that's okay, because there's a bunch of people with AI money here. Anyway, I'm going to start closing things off so I can go join everybody for lunch. My wishes for you are to have a lovely weekend. Try out the Agent SDK. Send us feedback on the Agent SDK, or if your agent builds it, I would love to have feedback from you on it. from the agent on it as well. And then I wish you get a hug from a person you really wanted a hug from. And then, or like one of those hugs from somebody you didn't know that you wanted a hug from, but it ends up being really good anyway. So yeah. Anyway, hope you have a lovely weekend. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining us. I will see you again next week at Office Hours. It happens every week on Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. It is in here. Bring questions and comments and lovely stuff. And don't get a mortgage because being a homeowner is a prison. All right. Goodbye, everybody.